Hi, everybody. We're going to start the panel now, officially. Yeah. We are DiscoCactus, and we'd love to start off by introducing ourselves one by one down the line, starting with Laura.
Oh, God.
Hi, everyone. My name is Laura Raffia. I'm best known for my work as a soloist on video game soundtracks and with concerts like Video Games Live and Pokemon Symphonic Evolutions and the Journey live performance with the Fifth House Ensemble. Game soundtracks I've performed on as a vocalist and flutist include Destiny and Destiny 2, Darksiders 3, recently Code Vein just came out and I can't wait to play it, and what was the other one I recently did? Well, that's enough out of me.
And wait. What do you do for a living?
For a living, my day job is being a church organist and cantor.
Where she also plays random video game tunes in the organ.
Follow me on Twitter.
Yes, it's amazing. I'm Mateus. I play the violin most of the time. And when I don't play violin, I usually eat or sleep. And that's actually what I do for a living. I
eat and sleep.
Yes, eat and sleep. No, I'm a freelance violinist, and I mainly just play with chamber groups. I'm an OG member of DiscoCactus. Woo! Once in a while I also teach.
You're also a doctor.
I'm also a doctor. And Ben is, which transitions perfectly into Ben.
He's almost a doctor.
Hi, I'm Ben Wallace. I'm also one of the original members of DiscoCactus when we formed it back in, 2014, 15 or so?
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah,
13.
I'm a composer slash pianist slash percussionist slash conductor sometimes. I think I'm the only student in the band at the moment because I'm in the middle of pursuing a doctorate of musical arts at the Yale School of Music and Composition. But otherwise, I live in Brooklyn. In my free time, I compose for orchestras and chamber ensembles, and I do a lot of freelance engraving and score and part preparation for other ensembles and composers.
If you see him in Twitch, his name is Dr. Threx, which is currently a lie. He's not yet.
Doctor anything.
I'm not a real doctor.
Hi, everyone. I'm Doug Perry. I guess you could say that I'm also one of the OG members of DiscoCactus. I work as a college professor, adjunct professor, teaching percussion and audio production. I do a lot of freelance percussion playing. In my day-to-day life, I hop around with lots of different orchestras all over the place and sit in the back and hit bass drum. And I do studio recordings for game soundtracks, some of which I've been on with Laura. What else? I stream on Twitch. Yeah, can you tell about Twitch Prime? Twitch Prime? You have Twitch Prime?
That is Mike.
So I play percussion. I play some piano. I do some singing as well, and compose and arrange. And here's Pete.
Hi, everybody. I'm Pete Minsky. I am definitely an original member of DiscoCactus. I play guitar in the band. I play piano and clarinet as well. And what I do for a living is not music related. I am an audio engineer, working audio post-production, a lot of dialogue kind of related things. If you've heard an audiobook that came out within the last 7 years, there's a good chance I had something to do with it. And I play all kinds of music. I've played in other funk bands. I've played in metal bands. I've played in community theater pits, stuck in a back corner. And Sam is my brother.
I forgot to mention I'm one of Pete's employees.
What a terrific segue into me. I'm Sam Babinski. I'm Pete's brother. I'm also the bass player of DiscoCactus, which is like the purpose of the panel and everything.
You are the purpose of the panel.
Yeah, me specifically. Yeah. I play double bass and electric bass with DiscoCactus. I studied classical music, classical double bass. I actually went to school with Doug and Mateus and Ben as well.
You went to school with me too.
Yeah,
Technically.
All right. Middle school doesn't count. And this past year I've had some work on video game soundtracks as well. I did some sound effects for Mortal Kombat 11, which was super fun. And I'm also an arranger. And little fun fact about how long ago was that? Like 15 years ago? Pete and I were in a like rock funk style band where I was playing guitar and he was playing bass. So here we are. 2020, new year, new us.
How the tables have turned. All right, everyone. So if you're here, I'm hoping that you've at least heard of us or have run into us either playing here at MAGFest or maybe seen something that we do online or something like that. But in case you've just wandered into this panel going, I'm just going to go down the line, go to panels 3 for a few seconds, go to panels 2 for a few seconds, and panels 1, and go to the major. In case you're just doing your tour and you happen to stop in. We are DiscoCactus. We're still trying to figure out a good tagline to describe ourselves. We had a really unproductive Facebook conversation a couple nights ago.
It was productive. Come on.
But basically, we are a video game band that really prioritizes the arrangement process of playing video game music. So I say that as in to differentiate from our goal when we play video game music is not really to do a direct cover to realize the music exactly as you would have heard it in the game. We really try to take the music and transform it into our own thing. So I wanted to start by talking about how the band got started, which actually I have a feeling most people probably don't know that much about, and get into how we make the music we make and why we do it basically. So I guess this all actually starts. The origins of DiscoCactus go back. Actually, let me tell you, if you want to talk about how we first met, I think that's maybe the very beginning.
So Doug and I first had our first interactions when we were TAing for this professor at Yale. The course was called Hearing. Hearing, where we teach people how to hear. So there's an interesting story about that course because once you get into the school, you have to take this exam, and it's blazing fast. And the purpose of that exam is just to place people in different levels of hearing class. And so we set up the room for the newcoming students to take the exam, and then we had a few minutes left. Then Doug sat at the piano and he started playing Mario or Sonic on the piano. I was like, what? No way. So I whip out my violin at the same second, and we're just jamming and just screwing around on video game tunes. And then he goes hey, do you want to go to a video game music convention with me? And I was like, wait, what? And that was back in, that was 2013, right?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, that was 2013. And I was just like, well, yes.
Yeah, so I guess that's kind of the earliest kernel of this is that basically there are a bunch of us who were studying music, classical music at the Yale School of Music who, in addition to our classical studies, had a lot of interests outside of that. And, this is also happening in parallel with a group that Ben and I and Mateus eventually started playing in. We went through a couple different names. At one point it was called The Gentleman, and then we realized that that wasn't a good name because it was really directly addressing the fact that we were just a bunch of white dudes. So we tried to maybe think of something better than that we could do. But anyway, it was a group that was just centered around trying to play in other genres, play more funk or rock or jazz or whatever, but do creative things with that and try to uphold the same level of a commitment that we have for playing classical chamber music. So we were doing all sorts of things. We were playing Daft Punk and
Earth, Wind and Fire.
Yeah, Deadmau5, Skrillex, I think even a little bit. Just doing all sorts of different types of things. But then video game music eventually just naturally came into it. So there was the year that I decided that I wanted some of these people to come to MAGFest, and so I asked specifically Ben, Mateus, and another friend who is named Sam who plays bass. It's not Sam Bob because we hadn't actually really met yet.
Doug was my TA for that hearing class, and that was my relationship to him for 2 years. It was oh yeah, it's the teaching man. It's the teacher man.
Yeah.
The teacher man.
Yeah, so I took a bunch of these guys to MAGFest because like you guys all like video game music. I think it would be really fun, and that was actually I think it was the year before we had jam pods, and at that point I had been applying to perform at MAGFest for like forever, and I'd never gotten I never had an application go through. And that year I was like, you know what, screw it, I'm gonna bring my stuff. You guys bring your instruments anyway. Let's just find a place to play, and we set up like in the stairwell area, like
where the jam pod currently exists. Yeah. I think we were the progenitors of the jam pod.
I think we might have been. I don't know. MAGFest can confirm that, but I think we may have stumbled into that one because at one point I saw like a MAGFest staffer come over and like kind of like stand there waiting for us to finish, and I was like, I'm sorry, do we have to leave? And he was like, no, I just came over to see if you needed anything, like water, really? And he was like, no, this is what we're all about. I think.
I just came to give you some rupees.
Yeah, they gave us little MAGFest points for doing that, yes. And then at that point, like somebody came over and was like, "What are you guys called?" And we remembered what was. Why don't you talk about the expression marking?
Sure. Before we had gone to MAGFest, before Doug had brought us to MAGFest, or no, maybe after. I don't remember the timeline. But when we were doing before, yeah. Okay, oh yeah, that makes sense. Before we were doing that, when we were doing our sort of gentleman music and cocktails thing, it was 2013, and it was the 100-year anniversary of Stravinsky's *The Rite of Spring*, the premiere of that piece. So everybody was doing their sort of homage to it, and one of our homages to it was we were doing a little funk band arrangement of *The Rite of Spring*. And this is around the same time that Facebook introduced those giant, like, colorful stickers you can put in Facebook Messenger. And there's a whole series of them that are like, adorable cacti. And I was just like, oh, they're so cute. And there was like one that was like, and I was like, it was the most adorable thing. So I was spamming it constantly in all of my messages with people. And then I was also arranging this big section of the Rite of Spring. And I just put as like a system header over a certain section, DiscoCactus with big exclamation points because I was doing a disco arrangement of Stravinsky's music, woo. And then like when and I was just a one-off joke. And then when we performed it, the guy playing bass clarinet, Ashley Smith, and I still have a recording of this, in the middle of the performance was like, DiscoCactus. Everybody goes, yeah! And like, and then from there on, it was just sort of like a cool name. And I think, yeah, in that moment when that guy was like, what do you call it? I think you were just like
DiscoCactus.
Which is also apparently an actual species of cacti.
Yeah, they look like little disco balls.
It's real.
Cool. Yeah. So at that point, the band started, and we just kind of tried to keep together and keep doing things like that.
So MAGFest, if we'll roll back this tape, and if in fact we did come up with the jam pod idea, please send checks payable to discocactusmusic@gmail.com on PayPal. Thank you.
So we started. Actually, it was like the year after that, I think, or maybe 2 years after that. We started like applying again, but like one year we got invited to do Mad Classic, and that's when Sam joined us. Because my friend Sam Suggs, who had been playing with us before, was getting really busy and he didn't have time anymore. And I knew that there was this other bass player named Sam who was in my hearing class that I taught. So I was like, oh, why don't we have Sam join us? And he joined us, and it was great. And then in 2016 we got asked to play here, and I was like, man, I want to do some projections or something, but we need somebody to run that. And Sam was like, I've got a twin brother that knows how to use a computer. And so Pete basically got into the band because we were doing an Undertale arrangement, and there was a part where I wanted to do a flexing contest, because like the character Aaron in Undertale, who's like a muscular seahorse.
I am not a muscular seahorse, but
you have to like do a flexing contest with him in order to win. And so I had this like horse mask. I was like, Pete, can you put this on, take your shirt off, and do a flexing contest with the audience? And he did it. And that's how we knew that he was.
Video? Can we play that?
Oh man, why don't you see if you can find it? But yeah, I mean, like, and then eventually we found out that Pete also knew how to play an instrument. But like before then, we were pretty sold that he should be in the band. Which actually alludes to like the fact that like we do value a certain type of personality in this ensemble, which we will get into more detail.
It's near the end.
Yeah, it's near the end.
I love you guys, but I may or may not ever want to disrobe for a concert again.
Yeah.
Look at Sam.
Probably around there. Yeah, and so like it was shortly after this as well that it was actually right after this concert that I think Laura met everybody on stage here and asked if she could be in the band, and I said like LOL, yeah. but it worked out really well. And it was after this period of time until like basically the last year or so that DiscoCactus kind of transitioned from being a collective, nebulous collective of like, oh, these players all like playing video game music, but who's playing what, when, who's like really in the group, and who's just going to join us for a concert, into what we have today, which is like this core of 6 people, plus our friends and trusted colleagues that we like to invite to perform with us all the time. All right, here comes the flexing contest.
Oh, yeah, here it is.
If it loads.
Yeah, if it'll load.
Internet.
Sorry, we're using my Wi-Fi hotspot because there he is. Yeah, it's Pete. Look at him. Oh, look at this break. Whoa! Wow.
I don't know.
I have
to
to
me,
say-
it really looks muscular and like a horse. I don't know what you were talking about.
So doing that shimmy to get from like past the keyboard to the front of the stage was the scariest thing because you cannot see out of that thing. And the space between where the keyboard was and the stage was about 3 inches, so I almost fell off twice because I had to go back.
Okay.
I also should note, whenever I play a gig, my father every time says, "You gonna wear the horse mask?"
Website. Oh yeah, there's our website. Great.
Well, Doug, you and I met actually at Video Games Live, I think.
That's
right?
true,
For
yeah.
the first time,
Yeah.
you were incredibly ill that day.
Oh yeah, I was really sick. I was trying to pretend like everything was fine because like I was hanging around 2 singers, which is like really bad. If like a singer knows you're sick, they're just like, "Oh, get away!" You know, like because like they have to protect their voice. And so I was just trying to be like, "Hey everybody, how's it going?"
Yeah, I had no idea until you told me afterwards. You're like, "Oh yeah, I had like 102-degree fever. I was like sweating my skin off. I was not okay whatsoever." And I was like, "Wow, you look great."
That was bad. Okay, so now I think that's basically how we came together and started doing what we're doing now as a group. But we should talk about like the kind of music that we make and how basically, and we're going to go down the line in a second, but basically one thing that kind of binds this group together is that we all have varying levels and varying types of formal education in music, meaning that we all pursued some sort of higher education at some point in music. And what we also have in common is that we're not at all tied to that. We appreciate our respective educations very much, but that doesn't necessarily mean that we feel like that is prescriptive to what type of music we should do. So video game music has very much been an outlet for all of us outside of our career lives and and then like when we were in school, outside of our student lives as well. And I thought like it would be cool to like just go down the line and talk about what we interpret would be like other artists and ensembles that influence DiscoCactus' sound, because I think it's actually a little different for everybody. Yeah. So, Pete or Sam, do you want to start this time?
Sure, I'll start. Anytime I explain this band to anybody who has no idea about anything about video game music, my number one reference point is Frank Zappa. It's just like that. Think about the like, you know what Frank Zappa sounds like. It's kind of what we sound like, and it's also a huge. I mean, he's also a huge influence on me and my musicality as well. So like, it and the how do I even describe this? The way that like he treats music is in a lot of ways the way that these guys treat music as well. It's just like kind of like music was his playground, and he's like, oh, I have a funny idea. What if I did this? What if, you know? And that's kind of what you guys do, and that's what I really like. And that's the big one for me. The other one of my other influences that I think ties into this band real well is Emerson, Lake and Palmer. They're a prog rock band. They're not exactly within our style, but like the way they arranged music was pretty similar to how we do it. They did a lot of like arrangements of classical pieces, rearranged for like a 3-piece rock band that just slap. That's it for me.
Let's see. Cannibal Corpse, Pig Destroyer. No. I have this. I usually have the same Zappa answer when people say like, "What do you guys sound like?" I think I personally take a lot of influence from kind of funkier bands like Earth, Wind and Fire, Tower of Power. Just that kind of style of really just fun music. Mm-hmm. And lately, Ben and I have been listening to a lot of Japanese funk from the 70s and 80s, like Cassiopeia and
So good.
Yellow Magic Orchestra.
Yellow Magic Orchestra. Like that stuff is also, it's just like, that's the same thing. It's also like that video game music existed before video games did, and that's what it was. It was that kind of funk music. And
We should just cover Yellow Magic Orchestra.
yeah, we very well could, yeah. And so that's what I always think of it as too.
Yeah, I certainly like to always, acknowledge like some of our brethren in the realm of video game jazz and funk, and these are artists like Super Soul Brothers, 8-Bit Big Band, Insane in the Rain Music, who's going to be joining us. They're all folks that I see doing similar things to what we're doing. That always really inspires me to keep wanting to like come up with new material for DiscoCactus. I'm a little frustrated that I would cite a child as an influence on our group. Insane in the Rain, Carlos is like 10 years younger than all of us at least, but that's just where we're at. Otherwise, like I also definitely agree, Tower of Power is a big influence. Snarky Puppy is one for me. I think that's a great collective of musicians with a really eclectic instrumentation, and we often fall under having an eclectic instrumentation, which you'll see when you see a tuba player on stage with us on our show. There's a who else is here? Lewis Cole and Knower, that just type of like very thick chordal funky music.
DiscoCactus is the reason I know about Knower, because
Yeah.
we all watched the government nose together in our hotel room in 2016 or 17 or whenever that was.
Yeah.
Do not repeat the lyrics in the microphones.
Yeah, don't do that. And then, like, actually in the classical music world, I'm not going to read all. We have a few notes here, but like Steve Reich is definitely a classical composer that's influenced a lot of my style of writing. I know like we have at least one tune where there are going to be some like Reich-ish elements in there.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, for me, I think you guys have sort of covered a lot of my influences too, because we all sort of share the same ones. For me, it's like a lot of like Earth, Wind, and Fire. Let me get the list out. Like when Will Roger introduced us to Lewis Cole and Knower, that just like opened the floodgates and like changed my musical landscape. Hermeto Pascoal, who's like a Brazilian musician and artist, has been like a huge influence on me and a lot of stuff that we do, harmonically and rhythmically and everything else. Daft Punk. There's another artist named Tigran Hamasyan. Am I pronouncing that right?
Something like that, yeah.
Who is an amazing piano player. And then also for me, like, I have a very soft spot for a lot of like 19th century and 20th century, concert classical music. For me, my big influence are like Johannes Brahms, Ravel, Stravinsky, Steve Reich, who's still alive, is one of my absolute favorite composers of all time. And then other sort of like more thornier modernist experimental guys like Messiaen, Boulez, Xenakis, Stockhausen, stuff like that. All of those things sort of eke their way into the things that I do, sometimes in one form or another.
Sure. Okay.
Oh, it's my turn. Hi. I thought I wrote Hermeto Pascoal.
You did. You did. I'm sorry.
I'm just kidding. No, yeah, like it's just like Ben and Doug said. Like I think a lot of us, we share a lot of interests and musicians that influence us. I grew up in Brazil, so one thing that I like to say is that I bring the ethnicness to this group.
He's the only one who can say that.
No, I say that because there was this one time where Ben had written an arrangement.
Oh, no.
Yes. And it was for a project that was the deadline was coming up really quickly.
Yeah.
He finished up writing it like a day or two before the final deadline, and he messaged me like, "Hey Mateus, like, can you please help me? Can you record this part for this arrangement that I wrote?" And then I was like, "Oh my God, can I do it?" I looked at the part, and then I immediately saw. I was like, "Oh, this can be very ethnic." So then I said, "Ben, I will record this with only under one condition." And he said, What it is? You name your condition. I was like, "You will have to allow me to record real ethnic violin." Anyway, so I digress.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
so-
magic.
It's so ethnic.
So I recorded what he wrote, and then I recorded what he wrote like an octave higher, and then I recorded a third part, which was the real ethnic violin part. And I think you used all three of them.
I did. I don't remember when it comes in.
It's in the
It's shortly
and all of
after
the
this.
all of the build-ups.
You'll know when you hear it. It's
This is from
very ethnic.
Pokken Tournament, by the way, that Pokemon fighting game that came out a few years ago.
So great.
All right.
Anyway.
I love that arrangement. It's so good. But anyway, I grew up in Brazil playing a lot of what is called choro music, which would be the Brazilian equivalent of jazz, where we'll kind of have a set form and then we'll go back to certain sections and improv on them. But it sounds very different from jazz. It's the harmonies are way simpler, but some of the people that I really like in choro is Hamilton de Holanda and João Nascimento and Jaime Vignoli. And I also like some of Frank Zappa bands, just like Arrigo Barnabé and Hermeto Pascoal. If you guys don't know Tubarões Voadores, you should look it up, which is really awesome. Yes.
Yeah. See.
See.
Everybody kind of said the ones that I would also say, Zappa for sure. Snarky Puppy, which Doug showed me when I was working on a big band type arrangement and I didn't know how to arrange for drums, and you just showed me this great track that they did. I was like, oh, this is cool. It's just really weird instrumentation, cool combinations. And definitely Steve Reich as well. Playing with, just really interesting, expansive harmonies and just kind of dwelling on them for a while is a very Steve Reich thing to do. I think an even greater influence than all these composers, though, is probably Silver Gunner.
Yeah.
Will help us segue into our next point of conversation.
Yes. Yes.
So I think, should I do this?
If you want.
Okay. So a lot of what we like to do when we're jamming together is incorporate humor in some way. And humor in music, I was told when I was a young composer starting out in school, is incredibly hard to do because it has to be experienced within the context of a piece, which it has rhythm and meter and stuff like that. So the way you have to incorporate the humor has to be something that the audience can perceive fast enough to understand what the joke is, but while the piece is still continuing. Like in a stand-up comedian's act, they can pause and wait for you to laugh or wait for you to get it. But in music, the piece is still going for all intents and purposes. So it's really hard to pull off. And I seriously cannot think of a funnier group of musicians than Silver Gunner, especially for video game music, because the way it works is that we know all of the themes that they're playing around with so well that we will instantly get the joke because it's just so ubiquitous to us as video game fans. And maybe better than me trying to explain it would be just listening to a couple of examples.
Why don't you do that? I think this is my favorite. Wait, does the shooter Okay, great. Oh my god. So we do this thing
more too.
That's all right. We're running out of time.
Oh, sure.
So we do this thing so this is just when we're hanging out or rehearsing or playing games or whatever, we'll notice stuff like this that we want to play with. So one of my favorite ones for us to if we're playing Smash, for example, we're listening to the Smash Ultimate menu music, and it gets to that part where it goes da 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 da. And so meanwhile, the track is still playing, but we're just all on the couch, just yelling this over top of everything else that's going on. The other one was Treasure Trove Cove.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, you get the idea. Like we
We do that
this
for hours.
Yeah, we do this stuff all
We do it until the
time.
end of the
Like,
panel.
if you ever come to like one of my Twitch streams when like Sam and Laura are both on, or like any of us, like this will happen for sure. And you'll be in there like, what are they doing? But,
In a way, it's kind of like miming music.
Yeah.
Like, we're taking an idea and repeating it like almost past the point of funniness
Yeah.
anymore.
There's a lot of screaming that happens when we all hang out together too.
oh yeah, definitely. Oh my God, yeah. The Yoshi one is also one that we. Yeah. Okay, so we unfortunately we're starting to push the clock a little bit. So now that we've talked about all those influences, like now we got to get into like what do we do when we arrange? So I said earlier that like for us arrangement is a really important part of what this band is. We don't necessarily want to be a band that just plays straight covers. Not that there's anything wrong with that. It's just not really the reason why we do it. So a big question that we ask ourselves when we're working on this stuff is how do you take a piece of diegetic video game music, a piece of music that is meant to be heard in the background of gameplay or that is meant to be looped ad nauseum or meant to transform into something else as gameplay goes on. How do we take music like that and turn that from that role into a piece of concert music intended for a performance for an audience such as yourselves? So there are all sorts of things that we incorporate into the arrangements in order to do this, and lots of talking that we do. So when we were at an artist retreat called Avaloq Farm Music Institute this year, which is a retreat where they just say, hey, welcome to our place. Here is your rehearsal room. Use it as much as you need. We'll give you meals and a place to sleep too. You know, so we were in there rehearsing and writing a lot of new arrangements, and there was one point where we just like had to sort of like pause and say, okay, we're working on this tune. It's not really working right now. What do we need to do? And like, you know, there's a picture somewhere of like Laura in front of a whiteboard. Like she looks like a professor. She's like broken down the piece into its form and been like, this is where the problem starts. So what do we need to do to the arrangement to fix that? So some of the ways that we tackle this is by we will use multiple pieces of music from a game or maybe a series of games and try to put them together in a way that will create narrative. We will put themes just on top of each other. We will do some of our own composing within the arrangement as well. We ask ourselves, is this going to be a funny arrangement or is this going to be a serious arrangement? All sorts of things like that. So actually, just looking at our list here, why don't we talk about like when we combine themes. Ben, you've done this a lot.
Yeah. So a thing that we all like to do, and it's also a thing that I've just been doing in my own like concert music for years now, is like trying to find ways to combine two very disparate pieces of music and see like where do the two like are they gears, like where are the teeth, how do they interlock in an interesting way. Like I did this sort of around the time that we all met, again going back to that Stravinsky centennial event thing. I wrote another piece for a different project, which was a combination of movement from the Rite of Spring in the style of Hermeto Pasquale, and trying to say like, oh, like how do these two things fit together? I've also done stuff where I like take a thorny piece of Xenakis like percussion music that's just, you know, lots of hits, and then like let's make it a little more jazzy. Let's put notes and chords to it and see what this looks like. So one of the first tunes that we all played together that I arranged for the group is a piece called Victory Storm. We first performed this when we played at Mac Classic in 2015, 16?
15, yeah.
2015, yeah.
2015, yeah.
Heck.
And it's called Victory Storm because it's two different, very iconic tunes. One of them is just the victory fanfare from Final Fantasy VII, and then it's Song of Storms from The Legend of Zelda. And
For those of you involved in music licensing, we'll never release it.
yeah, it's a everything that I do is a licensing nightmare. But I
It
just
sucks.
Yeah.
We hate it.
It's almost 10 minutes long.
Yeah, that too. But it's just like I get so much joy out of like putting things together in this way. So I'll play a little bit of Victory Storm in this piece. You know, I'll sort of do one of two things at any one moment in the tune. Sometimes it'll be the victory fanfare from Final Fantasy VII over the chord changes of Song of Storms, and then the reverse of that is the Song of Storms melody, ba-da-dum, ba-da-dum, ba-da-ba-da-ba-dum, but in 4 instead of 3, and over the chord changes of the Final Fantasy VII victory fanfare.
video game music.
This is the Music and Cocktails performance.
Oh, that's
of
fine.
it. Yeah.
Oh, nice.
And we can hear Sam.
This is like cell phone audio.
Yeah, you can hear Sam Suggs, the other bass player, saying like, "Video game music is the folk music of our generation," which I actually think is true. This is very bad audio quality.
Oh yeah, it's really good. It's all right.
Hold on, don't we have it like on YouTube?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay,
Boot that one up.
let's do that one then.
Flexing contest.
Where's the? Here we go. Because we played it. This one.
Yeah.
Yep. It's right at the end.
That was
We
gonna say,
closed
yeah, it was
up.
our last one.
This
Yeah.
last one.
Yeah.
Ooh,
Yep.
Yeah.
Peter Kim.
Yeah, there it is.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, the video's not synced. That's all right.
This is the Victory Phantom theme on top of the other. Anyway, that's a small taste, and like a lot of the stuff that we've arranged since then is very much in that vein. One of the tunes you'll hear tomorrow, if you come to our concert at 2 p.m. on the main stage, is a compressed fruitcake of like 20.
No. Okay, anyway, we're gonna move on.
That's all you get.
So we are running out of time. So I wanted Sam to briefly talk a little bit about how we create narrative in our arrangements as well when we're trying to do something a little more serious.
Yeah. So when we're coming up with a more serious arrangement, again, thinking outside of just like we could just cover this, but we like to kind of like present it in a way that it tells a story a little bit. And one of the ways I did that in a musical context, it was in our Journey arrangement that we played at MAGFest 2016. We did the song that plays at the end credits. The I was born for this, and I started the piece with the cello solo that plays at the very beginning of the game, and then basically after that it was almost a straight cover of the I was born for this. Yeah, I know. I'm like blanking now. So I did that, but like right at the end, I was like, how can I end this? And it came to me because in the game, what happens is, spoilers for those of you who have not played Journey. Sorry. When you get to the top of the mountain, it's like kind of the end, but you see like the light coming up from the mountain and going all the way back down the mountain, and that's like representing like the player like actually starts at the top and goes all the way back and then has to go back up and then all the way back. So I played at the very end of this arrangement, I put the music that plays at the very beginning of the game when you're it's just a camera just rushing through the desert, and that's your character, like it represents your character flying down from the top of the mountain and just landing in the desert, and you have no idea what's happening and you don't understand the context. So I put that music in there at the end to kind of represent that, and I thought that was pretty smart.
Yeah. So it's just little things like this that's a great example, I think, of like something that shows like, we played the game, we really got into it, and we really thought a lot about like, okay, well, what is it about this game that made it special on an artistic level, and how can we reflect that in the way that we arrange it?
Yeah.
So we are tragically running out of time, and I want to make sure that we have some time for Q&A. So I want to quickly talk about our arrangement and rehearsal process in case you guys are curious. And some of you guys already see this because every once in a while we will stream ourselves on Twitch. We will take requests and pull up lead sheets kindly provided to us by vgleadsheets.com. Thank you, vgleadsheets.com. We'll read down the lead sheet, we'll mess around with it. And actually, like, what you guys don't know is that that's part of our process, is because one of the things that we do together to figure out what we want to arrange is we improvise. So reading lead sheets like this is a great way for us to get an idea of a tune that we may not have tried playing before, what it could be like, and what ideas we might have. And then if outside the camera when we're together, we might just try saying like, okay, can you play the melody here, and then you play this counter melody, and I'm going to play the melody from this thing at the same time, and work it out in those ways to see what actually comes up from that. So that's kind of like a starting point for us often. Sometimes the starting point is, oh my God, I've always wanted to arrange this. Can I do it? And then we go like, yeah. So everybody in the group arranges for the band. We've all done it at some point, and we all kind of are at will to do it. DiscoCactus is our mutual experiment, like toy project thing that we get to play with. So, and like, when we do these sorts of things, anybody is allowed to start an arrangement, and then we'll workshop it together. Somebody will bring in something that they've started, we'll play through it, and it is very important that we just talk about what was written and what we think works and what we think doesn't. It's a very democratic process, but at the end of the day, it's understood that whoever brought in the tune ultimately has the control over the arrangement, but we all very much value and welcome our insights into that.
We all have different strengths. Did I just cut you off? I'm so sorry. We all have different strengths too, so like I think we tend to rely on different people in the group to sort of fill in the spaces that we don't know how to do. Like my strength is wind writing, so a lot of times I'll if somebody has a problem with their arrangement, they're not sure what to do, I can get around like how to fit like all the wind parts together. But my weakness is strings. It is just an instrument that I don't have a lot of understanding of, especially guitar. So usually I'll bring in a piece and be like, okay, everything else, I have beautiful wind parts for everybody, and I got a great vibraphone part. Pete, I don't know, help me out, man. Like put something in there
Just
that
put some
works.
chord markings. I'll figure it out.
But it's always better if Pete figures out the guitar part rather than me writing something that's like atrocious.
Yeah.
And being like, yeah, this is my dream. This is my vision.
I guess you say like we have a lot of trust in each other to play the right thing.
Mm-hmm.
Like we all know our primary instruments the best, and we really do lean on that quite a bit. I don't think I've ever written a drum set part because normally we work with this drummer named Johnny Allen, who's going to be joining us here, and he just always plays the right thing. I just say like, can you listen to what everyone else is doing for a second and play something? He goes, yeah, okay. And it's like I'm not going to write a part for you.
He figures it out and he plays it masterfully.
Yeah.
Yep. Also, going with that of like putting the trust in other players with their parts is another interesting fact that all of us here are multi-instrumentalists. So I mean, Laura plays 27 different instruments, like iwi, flute, voice, and keyboard. My secondary instrument in undergrad was double bass, and I played a little bit of drums during my master's. Ben,
You play guitar.
Yeah, guitar.
a little bit, yes, I guess.
plays it, like, so well. I don't know why you
also
didn't say
is a percussionist. Doug plays. My God, he makes his own instruments.
And he
Pete
sings.
Pete also plays clarinet. Sam also plays the guitar and the violin.
I had to
It's
take
proven
violin
in the
lessons.
stream.
Yeah.
So we also kind of like share an understanding of like, oh, I kind of know how this other instrument, like the mechanics, like, and then it usually translates to like, okay, I know that instrument can do something like that, and then you go and talk to the person, and the person goes like, oh yeah, I saw that, and I thought of doing it like that, and you're like, oh yeah, that's so much better. So that's how it usually works.
Yeah. And so what ends up happening because of this process is the music that we write for ourselves ends up, well, first of all, I should say we pretty much always come up with sheet music. I know not all bands use sheet music, but just because of our backgrounds, like that's the best, most efficient way for us to work. Yeah. And our sheet music that we use is a combination of being completely written out and in this lead sheet format, which is more nebulous. Here are some rough rhythms and chords, play the right thing as a result. So like we have a few arrangements. We have a Breath of the Wild arrangement that Mateus wrote for us a while back. That is, here's every single line of Tarrytown completely written out. And then in this transition, everybody just has chords. Like, play the right thing through this transition, and then we get to the next thing.
And then the cadenza, where
the cadenza
Ben just plays beautiful
Yes.
piano music.
Yeah, there's a big piano solo in the middle, and yeah, you just...
I just play the ambient background music in Breath of the Wild, which is occasionally a single note. Just
So that's the arrangement process of it, which is a very big part of it for us. Aside from that, when we get into things like actually rehearsing, we take a lot of, like, especially those of us who were in classical music school, take a lot of the techniques from that. And some of the most helpful things that we do is slow practice. Yes. Practice slow with the metronome. Get a metronome out. Say, like, okay, this is Ben. You wrote this at chord note equals 144. We're going to put this on 3, and we're just going to line everything up and figure out where it all works. One life hack. Music life hack for you guys. If you're having trouble getting your ensemble together, get the instruments out of the way so you don't have to think about them, and just clap your rhythms. So can we do the Sonic Mania one really quick? Where you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
No.
Oh
yes.
So wait,
Yes.
let's just do it really quick. 1, 2. I'll sing the first measure, and then clap the bum bum bum.
Gotcha.
Oh yeah, so da 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 dun dun dun.
Yeah. So we did that like about 500 times because it was like kind of an awkward rhythm. It's like, no, how are we going to get this together? So like one of our rehearsals was just like a half hour in the basement just going, all right, one more time. All right, one more time. Wait, one more time. So on and so forth. And then yeah, we also do a lot of singing because we can't always have the instruments with us. Like we did that in our hotel room last night. Once again, just to make sure everybody understands the form of each tune. We put the trust in, like, as players, yes, we should have practiced our parts and know how to play them. So let's just make sure we all know when to play them at the same time together and in a unified way. And that's also a great way to tell, like, oh, you're singing that kind of loud, or that kind of seemed to jump ahead, you know, or things like that, little details like that.
I would also add, when we do singing rehearsals, a lot of this is to make sure that every musician in the group is on the same page as far as the roadmap of the piece is concerned, because a lot of lead sheets use like repeat signs and first and second endings in order to condense everything down into a couple pages, and sometimes that causes confusion because people will either jump the gun, or people won't. I do this constantly, where it's like, I didn't know we were taking this repeat. Oh, we're on the coda already, you know, whatever. And so a lot of times we'll do these singing rehearsals just to be like, all right, this happens twice, then we go to the coda, then we repeat back to the beginning. Everybody's square. Fantastic.
Yeah, nothing derails a performance more than one person going, oh my God, I got to the end, and everyone's still playing. Yeah. Okay, I guess I'll wrap it up with just, you know, saying, like, from here on out, you know, after we arrange and rehearse, then we perform. So we've done some local shows, and we've played at conventions and stuff like this, but we've really found quite an outlet on Twitch, actually. We've been doing these streaming concerts, and it's really fun for us because, you know, when you play a local show, like, maybe you'll get, like, 3 people in the audience who are like, oh my God, I love Donkey Kong! You know, like... Yeah. They're like, oh, great, somebody recognized the music, and then, you know, maybe there's still like 10 people over at the bar who have no idea what we're doing, you know. But, like, you know, you play on Twitch, it's like everybody that wants to listen to us can just listen to us, and they don't have to leave.
I also think, real quick though, that the part of the like what makes this band great is that you can present this to people who don't know anything about video game music and be like, here's this thing that we wrote, and like it doesn't. So most of the pieces like don't have to make sense. That's just to. They still sound good anyway.
Yeah. And from here on out, like, we have a whole slew of ideas that we want to try to pursue. One of which is we've been really inspired by Lewis Cole's music videos, where he's just like, he gets like an Airbnb and sticks like 15 people in there, and like, so I think that's on the docket of something that we want to try doing. Yeah. We had this idea that we may try to realize, where we take the Twitch concert idea, but like do that like at other people's houses. Which I think would be really fun. Like there's Nick's Mad Science, who's also a Twitch streamer, and
we're coming to your house, Nick.
Yeah, can we come over?
Can we come over and play?
Yeah. Okay, good.
We just like awkwardly start staring at our audience, just like we're gonna go to basement.
We're gonna come over.
People's basements.
Who has free time in 2 weeks from now?
Yeah, I hope you have room in your house, Robbie. We're coming to Canada. And then we're going to make an album. Anyway, so at this point, we've got about 10 minutes left. We'd love to open it up to questions. If anybody has any questions they want to ask, then you can walk up to that microphone right there. Are you going to ask a question or what?
Turn that on.
You just go to the microphone.
But make a nice, neat, single
Hello.
file line.
We never tested it. Oh, it's good. What is the name of your next album?
The name of our next what?
Album.
Album.
We are not contractually obligated to give you this answer.
Oh,
I don't know.
but I waited in
we don't
line.
Never got that far.
We planned a lot of things for this album, but not that.
We haven't talked about it yet.
I expect a good title.
All right.
Thank you.
Okay.
Then what would you call it?
You're so smart. You named it.
You figure it out. You just do it.
This is more of a comment than a question. I just like to say I love how everyone on the table is very well hydrated right now.
Oh, yes, thank you. It is important to stay hydrated,
I drank like
everyone.
this whole thing.
I'm not
yeah.
hydrated at all right now.
Drink your water.
Good reminder.
So you didn't talk about recording really at all.
Ah.
What does recording look like for you? Because a lot of you are close together, but some of you are sometimes far. What do you do?
We have a plan for the album, right? We have
Yeah.
to do it in layers. Maybe
Yeah,
we
so
talk about
basically
that.
when we do this album, we're basically going to start with like a rhythm section foundation to make sure like, bass, drums, keyboards, all these sort of like the instruments that are the glue are together when they record. So we're gonna work with a studio. We've got some studio engineer friends that are gonna help us out with that as well. Then from there, then maybe like the next wave of us that are nearby will get together and record the next couple things. We also have a lot of members of the group who are located all over the place, people that we like to play with who are not local to us that we will have remotely record. Of course, this is trusting that they have good recording setups, but luckily a lot of those people do. So like, for example, like I'm sure we'd love to have Will Roger on this album somewhere because he's been with us from the beginning. He lives in Seattle. He's not going to come over.
Will, come over and hang out.
Yeah. So that's the plan for now.
But he's more than capable to record himself.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, exactly.
He can like make a tune in like 3 minutes.
Oh, yeah, we're not supposed to talk about that.
What requests that have you gotten from Twitch, if any, that have then inspired you to go on and make a full arrangement?
Ah,
Oh,
That's a great
a lot of
question.
those.
Such a good question.
Yeah, a lot of those. Yep.
Persona 5, last
Yes.
surprise.
That turned into a whole thing.
That was one. There have been more.
Hollow Knight.
Hollow Knight. Yep.
Oh, that's right.
Hollow Knight.
And Hollow Knight music.
That Street Fighter tune.
Oh,
that
Dudley
Yeah,
Street
Street
Fighter
Fighter
that
3,
we keep
yeah.
playing.
There's a
Those
tune from
theme.
Street Fighter Third Strike that somebody requested once that, like, has a really simple bass line. We were like, hey, do you have a lead sheet for this? And he just goes, you don't need one. Like, the rest of that show and then the next show, we just kept playing it because the bass line is just...
Amazing.
It slaps.
It slaps hard.
Yeah, and then I think there's this was actually on my stream, but it worked its way into the band. Is the Great Ace Attorney.
The Great Ace Attorney, which I think was a Japan only, like Phoenix Wright game. Yeah, and you, I guess, you will hear it.
You might hear it.
You might hear it tomorrow.
You might not, though. Just be aware of that.
You never know. Anything can happen.
Yeah.
Good morning, friends. I love you all.
Hi.
Hi.
Kayla.
So when I show my friends like the Pokemon Firebird Sweep matchup, they're always like, "Oh my gosh, that's so amazing!" Blah blah blah, and I'm just like, "Yeah, I love them." But I actually wanted to know what's the most difficult or most challenging arrangement for all of you guys, like as a group.
Anything
by
Ben
Ben.
ever
Anything
writes.
Ben writes.
By Ben.
I like how we all had the same answer.
If it has Ben, yes.
I actually think it's the arrangement of the Stanley Parable, which is, for all intents and purposes, basically an original composition by Ben that has the one little tiny piece of music that's in the Stanley Parable.
Yeah, there isn't really a lot. Yeah, but no, like Ben has written some of the most like technically challenging music for
Generally,
us. For
when
sure.
sorry, maybe
No,
cut
go
you
ahead.
off. When there's like a classical music like tradition type written thing, like we can jam on basically anything and get through it. But when we try to incorporate something that is like really technically written, that's always something that like needs a lot of rehearsal time, like the Reich section and like Chaos King.
And yeah, you're gonna hear some of those tricky things on Saturday that we have coming up too.
Yeah.
Excellent. Thank
Yep.
you.
Hello.
Hey, guys.
Hey.
Could you guys Twitch stream from my basement? But so you could also meet our cat, who we named Bippy.
Right.
Yeah, that sounds great.
Sweet. Absolutely best pictures.
Yeah.
That was a straightforward
That was a
question.
good one.
Hello.
Two things. One, that hallway, like one of your first performances hallways, I was looking through my old pictures and I totally have a picture from that one
Awesome.
because I had a Zelda bag that had the Serenade of Water on it, and you started playing it, Doug.
Oh my God.
So if you want me to tag you in that picture from X number of years ago, yeah, I'll do that.
Yeah,
We're going to need to confiscate that picture.
But the other thing is, if someone were to hand you an arrangement, what would you want it to include?
Ah, that
A
is
lot of cool bass stuff.
no. That's a fantastic question. You know, I think more than anything else, if somebody hands us an arrangement, for me personally, I really love to see like a creative exploration of whatever the musical content of that arrangement is. So like, for us, like an arrangement, something that'll inspire me to do an arrangement is I was really moved by this game or this piece of music, and I want to write an arrangement that really exemplifies what moved me about it. But I know what that is for myself. I don't know what that is for everyone else. And I think like for me, I would be really excited to find out like what was moving for another arranger about a piece of music and how did they work that into their arrangement. I don't know. What do you guys think? I think
Rehearsal markings.
Yeah.
And measure numbers.
Yeah.
And good page turns.
And good page turns. Sorry, I'm really picky about formatting because I do it professionally. But, sorry.
For those who want to watch your live streams in the basement, and they might want to smash that follow button, where should they go?
Aha.
Wow, what a terrific
So-
question. Thank you, Nick.
So we do all of our Twitch streaming from my Twitch channel currently, which is twitch.tv/drumultima. You can remember it because it's a combination of the instrument that I play, which is drum, and my favorite move in Final Fantasy VI, which was Ultima. A lot of people think it's Ultima Online, and I'm like, no, I don't play that.
I thought it was the suplex, when you suplex the train.
No, that's not Ultima. That's Suplex.
Next question.
So if I wanted to write you guys an arrangement, do I just write it and send it to you, or?
Yeah.
It certainly wouldn't be the first time that's happened, actually.
That's true.
And that being said, we can't guarantee that we'll ever play it. We'll definitely look at it. But it would be kind of cool to like do a project sometime of like opening up
That
like
would be really cool.
the big arrangement collaboration sort of.
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah, that'd be fun.
The gears are turning.
Yeah. Like it would be cool if we did like a Twitch show where we sort of advertised beforehand, like, oh, like, you know, we're going to do a bunch of other people's stuff, you
Yeah.
know, so if it was sent like ahead of time or something.
Yeah,
like
and we could
that.
like practice it. Yeah, that'd be cool.
sure.
All right, thanks for the input. It is noted.
Noted.
Hi guys. I
Hello.
assume you're running low on time, so I don't want you to think about this at all. I want
Okay.
it to be a rapid fire from the left all the way to the right. Favorite Pokemon?
You're the left, right?
I
It's
am the
English.
left.
I don't know. It's like,
I never played Pokemon as a kid.
That's right.
Big trouble.
You can describe it. I'll help you out.
What's the one that's in that meme where it's like Ebenezer Scrooge is guessing like who's that Pokemon, and he says like it's Diglett, but it's actually his own tombstone. Is that just Diglett?
It might be Diglett. Yeah.
I like the tombstone Pokemon.
Probably Diglett. Yeah, I think it's probably Diglett.
That's my favorite.
I don't actually know. I don't think I have one favorite, but I really like Bulbasaur.
That's what I was going to say. No, it's just like I haven't played Pokemon in years, but it's just like it's probably either Bulbasaur or maybe like Litleo or something like that. 'cause
Litleo's
it's
really
cute.
I don't know, like probably just like a Pikachu's or something.
Get out.
No, it's Mewtwo. Go on.
I really want an Oddish as a pet.
Oh, there are a lot of plant type fans over here.
Yeah.
What's going on? Grass type.
Grass type, best type.
Oh my
I
God.
liked Nidoking a lot as a kid because he was just like this big, burly, like armored dude. It just looked so cool. And I heard he is actually not that great. I like Zigzagoon. He's just like a goof. I'd want one of those as a pet too.
Nobody
and
picked
what's
Dragonite?
What's the dog from the newest one?
The fire dog?
Yeah, no, the
Growlithe.
Fire
The corgi dog?
Yamper.
Yamper. I love
Oh,
Yamper.
Doug,
Yeah.
what's the one that's like shivering the whole time that I love?
Oh, Snow Run.
Yeah, that's my
Snow Run.
favorite.
I was
That's
also
my
going to say,
favorite.
like, in spite of my undying and permanent affection from you two, I think if I were to like ever actually like have a Pokemon as a pet, I think I would actually want like a Growlithe or no, ideally an Arcanine, just because we wouldn't have to pay for heat anymore. You just like cut our gas bill, just let the dog out, and like the dog will heat up the house. I think it'd be great.
Just have to like sleep in the bedroom with you and just
yeah, nice and toasty. All right. Anyway, folks, we are out of time. Thank you so much for coming. We have a show
guys.
Saturday at 2. Please come.
On the main stage.
Hey, thank you, everybody.
Also, I think we have an album title now by Tommy Rosati. It's going to be DiscoCactus.
Thank
Thanks,
you, Tommy.
everyone.
Yeah. Thanks so much.
Yeah. We are also on SoundCloud. We're on Twitter. We're on Twitch on Doug's channel. We just got a website. It's DiscoCactus Music or just DiscoCactusMusic.com. Sign up for our mailing list. We'll let you know when our next live stream show is, when our next everything is.
Yeah.
Check us out.
And Saturday at 2, main stage. We'll see you there.
Yeah.
Thank you all for coming.
Fun, everybody.